All right, guys, today we got a very special guest in the house. Singer, rapper, actor, makeup artist, ice skater, a woman of many talents, yet very controversial as well. We're talking about the one, the only Tina Torres.
What's good?
How you doing today, Tina?
I'm fantastic. How about you?
I'm just so glad that we were able to connect. You know, my fans have been telling me to link with you for a few months now. And
Really?
I want you to be honest, okay, about this. But are you familiar with my channel prior to me hitting you up? It's okay if you're not.
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, my channel's pretty controversial because I cover a lot of things that people are afraid to cover, especially with the questions I ask. So I thought it would be a perfect fit with you. With my interviews, I really like to start at the beginning and get help the people understand the person more and how they got to this point in their life. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
Born and raised in San Francisco, California, in the Bay Area. And then my family moved to the East Bay. And then we also moved to Arizona when I was about a preteen. And then we were like in LA at the same time. So my family's organization was split up in between Arizona and LA. So I was always kind of bouncing around between the two.
So you definitely were all over the place, and I'm sure that helped you become a more well-rounded person.
Absolutely.
And you're Mexican, is that right?
I am Peruvian. I'm quarter Peruvian, quarter Mexican, and half Nicaragüense.
Wow.
Crazy mix.
Right. And what was the household like when you were growing up? Was it very traditional?
I wouldn't say traditional, but you know, I grew up in a Christian home, and it's like my upbringing is very unorthodox. Like you can't. It's like out of this. It's you can't put it in a box. You know what I mean? Where my dad came from the streets, from the Bay Area as a gang member. And then he ended up giving his life to Christ when he was 18 because he almost went to prison for attempted murder. And then he ended up converting to Christianity and then joined a denomination called Victory Outreach, which was a bunch of like ex-gang members that were now Christian. But the problem is mixing that religion in with that street mentality and mindset was kind of a recipe for disaster. But so he evolved past that. But you know, it was like, and we ended up getting caught up in, you know, the evangelical Christianity, Assemblies of God. You know, at one point he was the youth pastor of the Dream Center in LA. And all of that just came crumbling down because, you know, religion is not sustainable.
Wow, that's amazing. So he went from like one extreme to the other extreme, but at the same time, you have the conflict there of coming from one mentality to the next, right? Did he ever
Exactly.
like tell you about the struggles he had with that?
I mean, my dad was always very vocal, you know, so he was always kind of transparent with everything, but it was never in like the sentiment like that he struggled. And maybe now that in retrospect, maybe he wasn't even fully aware of what was happening. You know what I mean? Because his focal point was Christianity, making sure to save souls, and then, you know, helping teens, which he did. You know, my family has helped a countless number of families. But you know, things can get twisted even when you have good intentions.
And so your dad was a pastor, right? He ended up becoming a
Yes.
pastor.
So yeah, he was at first he was more of like a minister. He was, you know, he would travel all over the world. And then eventually, and then, you know, he became the youth pastor of the Dream Center in LA. And then we ended up after that, because that whole thing fell apart. We ended up getting kicked out of the church because my dad was so zealous. And my dad, the thing about my father is that he took he dissected the Bible, and he would point out and be like, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. It was like, you know, to the letter of the law. So he was very zealous in that sense and created a lot of problems within the church because people weren't living according to the Bible. You know what I mean? If you're going to be religious and live according to what the Bible says, then it gets crazy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so it was just, what's the point? I'm sorry?
No, I'm just laughing because it really does. It really does.
Yeah. And what's the point of being a Christian if you're not going to meet these requirements and standards. You know what I mean? You might as well like it. Then it's all redundant. It's pointless at the end of the day. So he got kicked out of that church, and then we ended up starting our own church. And then when I moved to New York City, because I just was able to see through the eyes of religion, and there was something in me that was like, I don't want to say stuck in church singing. Like, this is not like my end all be all. I'm like, there's something more I got to do. So I ended up leaving home. It was the second time that I left home. I ran away when I was like 19. Well, actually, when I was 17, he sent me to the Philippines for like listening to rap music and all that. And I was,
Right, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that.
I know,
You're skipping ahead.
You're right.
You're skipping ahead right now. But what did your mom do? Was she was in the ministry as well?
Yeah, my mom was always there, and my mom ended up founding a Bible college, and my mom did some incredible things. Even though now that we're here out of religion, she has now voiced to us that there were things that she did not agree with. But as the submissive wife, there wasn't much she could do. You know what I mean? So what she did was she made a beautiful world for people within the confines of religion.
Gotcha. And did you grow up with any siblings?
Yeah, I have an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay. So you're middle child, right?
Yeah.
How would you describe your childhood? Like, were you really into sports or just music early on?
All of it. My mom threw me in tap, jazz, ballet when I was 5. She also directed a play at church when I was 5, and she cast me in as one of the main characters. So I was on stage, and the play was, our church had about 1,000 people. So that was our first show. And it was so good that we ended up touring the play around the Bay Area. So from young, I've been acting, singing, dancing. I played soccer, and then I was a figure skater. So always been active.
So now we understand where it all comes from. Very early on, you was doing all of it already.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in the Bay? Like, did you grow up in like the really rough parts, or how was that like?
It was a mixture. So, I would spend a lot of time in my mom's old neighborhood in the Mission District. My family would send us there every weekend to be with my aunts because we ended up moving to the East Bay. So it was like this mixture of part suburb, which wasn't like super upscale suburb. You know what I mean? My sister still says it's the hood. And in retrospect, I'm like, it's suburb. It's the hood. But then being in the Mission District too, and then moving to LA, that's right in Echo Park area. So, I've experienced, I've experienced people from all walks of life and cultures and from your crackhead on Skid Row to European nobility and everything in between.
Yeah, that's beautiful to be able to experience all of that, because it really opens your eyes to a different world entirely, instead of being sheltered into one aspect of what you think the world is really like.
Absolutely.
So your parents, they ended up sending you to the Philippines when you were 17, right? So how did that happen, and why the Philippines of all places?
Well, my brother's godfather was the pastor of a church out there. And my dad, he had like the #1 faith-based treatment facility in the country for troubled teens at the time, he was like, where can I send my daughter? He couldn't control me. And it was kind of embarrassing for him, I think, because here he is helping everybody else's teen, and kind of showcasing and almost, in maybe in a bragging way that, I have my kids in check. And here I come at 17, sneaking off, listening to secular music. My first 2 albums that I bought were Get Rich or Die Trying and Fab Street Dreams. I remember I used to have to hide them under the seat of my car. And then I would change all the presets in my car, like change the radio station so no one would catch me. But I ended up getting caught. And so he was like, he shipped me off to the Philippines. And so I went over there. Wait,
before you get into that, but what was that conversation like when he caught you?
It was like, it is a whole, like, what do you call, like an intervention session. That's exactly like sitting me down. We found this. He ended up taking all my clothes. Like I had all of these like baby fat, Rockaware, all kinds of clothes. He like burnt all my clothes, took my CDs. He took my makeup, everything. And he was like, you're going to the Philippines. So I had no clue what to expect. I was distraught. But when I got there, my brother's godfather, he was like, you know what, stay with this family who had a daughter my age. They were pastors, part of the church out there too. And we hit it off, her and I. And next thing you know, she was taking me to parties. Like her parents were traveling the Philippines preaching. So I lived in the Manila Boys Home Orphanage. That's where they lived, like like in third world conditions, like where
Wow.
no running water. You got to take a bucket to flush down the toilet so it can flush. You know what I mean? Um, so
It makes you appreciate things so much more.
absolutely, absolutely. And it taught me that I was very adaptable too. You know what I mean? Because like going from living in Scottsdale, Arizona to the Manila, Philippines, you know what I mean? That was crazy. But it was like my adaptation to it was seamless. It was like I just integrated so seamlessly, you know? So next thing you know, she was taking me out. We were going to like, she took me to like a TV station. Next thing you know, I was getting signed by like some talent agency. We were going to MTV Asia exclusive parties, like partying with Filipino celebrities. I was 17. I remember coming out of the club and it was like 5:30 a.m. and the sun was up and I was like, oh my God, you know? So it was pretty wild.
Because you ended up dropping out of high school, right? Because that was the time when you were having fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't really drop out when they sent me there because you know they had a school for the teens in the program in the facility, so I kind of had my own self-taught curriculum. But when I got to the Philippines, I was just like, I put that behind, and I just had fun. So I had a few credits left to finish of my senior year, but I never ended up finishing them. And then later on, my mom was like, you know, just like we can give you a diploma, and I was like, nah, I want to prove to people that I can accomplish what I can accomplish in life without needing the credentials of this American society.
Right, exactly. I totally understand that. So when you're there, was that like an experience for you where you felt like I've been sheltered or controlled in a way for so long that like now I'm going against the grain and I'm doing whatever I want?
Oh yeah, I had full freedom and liberty.
And what was that
Hmm.
like partying with, Filipino celebrities and everything? Did you learn Tagalog?
I learned a little Tagalog over there. I could sing a little song, you know, mahal na mahal kita Panginoon. So you know, I can fuck around, but it was just to me. I just remember just observing and taking it all in. Like I don't remember ever getting drunk as a teen. I remember drinking responsibly at 17. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like I didn't go overboard. I just remember just wanting to experience and take it all in. And that's just what happened. And then just getting into the music, obviously a lot of music that I wasn't allowed to listen to growing up. And I was just like, what is this? The music was like crack for me. I didn't even need alcohol because the music like was that for me.
So, I mean, like, because at that time you had not drank prior to that, right?
No, I mean, I had little sessions, you know, with my friends, you know, and that's, you know, when I got in trouble, you know,
Mm.
I did drink underage or whatever. And that's part of the reason why they also sent me to the Philippines. But the Philippine drinking age, it was 18. And then you go to the club there, they don't check the ID. And I turned 18 when I was over there. So I was fully legal there.
So you were mentioning that, you weren't allowed to listen to hip hop growing up. And I'm assuming, you're growing up in the Bay, all your friends are listening to hip hop. It's like the most popular genre, at that time, or one of them.
Well, this is the thing is, so I went to a private Christian school up until fourth grade. And then after that, my parents took us out of that private Christian school and they had their own school. So that was when I started doing that self-taught curriculum. So I didn't really have like the friends that I had from when I was in kindergarten, I no longer had. So the people that I started to befriend were the kids that were in the program, but those kids would come and go. So it was like I never really had like a friend that stayed around for a long time. But when they were in the program, they weren't allowed to listen to that music. So I was still very sheltered in that sense, but there would be a lot of conversation. And of course, you go out to the mall, places, you hear music, you know what I mean? And you know what that is, but it's like, it was taboo in our homes and we weren't allowed to have it at all.
Right. So I understand. So it's more of like homeschool almost versus going to a public school. And then you see like everybody have like these different things. It's kind of like you guys are more on the same level within the group.
Exactly.
So you said that your mom didn't agree with all of the religion, right? But at the time she was trying to be a good wife and be the submissive wife and everything. Now that you guys are out of it, she's able to admit it. It almost sounds like you guys came out of a cultish kind of in a way.
Yeah. Borderline. pretty much. Like the way he cultivated the community was very much like that. You know what I mean? And then when people would want to leave, there was, they early on they would be kind of ostracized. I think later on he learned to just, if people want to go, they let them go. You know what I mean? You can't keep people in a community if they don't want to be a part of a community. But the problem is he ended up being brainwashed so much by the religion that in his heart he felt that was the right thing to do.
And these days he's out of it as well, or?
Yep, he's far removed from it. He actually lives in the Philippines now.
Wow. So what was that experience like to go from one extreme to the next, like, and to witness that? Like, at what age were you when they finally let go of the religion?
This was about fully, I want to say, because I remember 2016, my family was living in Orlando. I was in New York, and I came to visit, and that was like right when I came to visit was when Pulse happened. And I remember my dad still having beliefs about homosexuality, connected to religion. I would say sometime after that, it started to dwindle down. But at that point, I don't think he attended church anymore. You know what I mean? It was like if he was reading the word or trying to get, fed was what they call it. It would be online or whatever, something like that.
So more of like a self-study and self-practice.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
But now he's evolved past that now.
And for you, when did you let go of it? Because you said that you moved away on your own and everything, right?
Yeah, I didn't fully let go of it because even though I left it, and my mentality was like, well, if I'm going to go to hell, I'm going to go having fun. You know what I mean? But that still wasn't correct thinking. That's religious programming. So I fully came out. I would say 2012 is when I started having a greater spiritual awakening. I had physical manifestations too of my mind changing, the protein synthesis in my brain actually breaking down, and new protein synthesis forming to create this new evolutionary state that I'm in. So from 2012, I would say, about 2012.
So what was the conversations like with your mom and your dad after that? Like, have you guys spoken about like the way that you grew up and those kind of experiences and now?
Oh, we talk about it all the time. It's like the number one topic of conversation, because as a family, we're all still very connected, close. And even though, there are certain things my dad's doing that I don't agree with and, family stuff, but at the core of who we are, there's always going to be love at the core. So it's, we all understand we're on this journey together, and we're not only blood family, but we're a soul tribe. So we're here to assist each other in ascension and to just learn and grow.
For you, can you explain that spiritual awakening you were talking about in 2012?
So my mom gave me a book by a lady named Dr. Caroline Leaf. And the book, she's a Christian lady, but she was able to break down quantum physics, science, and using scripture too, in how how it relates to the mind and sickness and disease in the body, and how sickness and disease is comprised through the mind. So learning that was my journey into quantum physics. And once I started learning quantum physics messed me up because I absorbed it and I understood it, and I started conducting myself in the world like that. But then when you start doing that and you're in a world where people don't understand and they solely operate on physical 3D, then you can look crazy,
Right. Yeah, definitely. I can understand, like, the more that you're going against the grain, and the more you try to explain yourself, a lot of times the crazier you look to people that are used to kind of like being sheep and like, carried along.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So at what age did you start pursuing music, like, officially?
Probably when I was 19, when I left home for the first time. So my family we were out of LA. We were all in Arizona, and I decided I wanted to get out and go. And so I moved to LA, and I was there for a couple of years, and I was working with a duo called the Juggernauts. They were signed to Capitol Records at the time. So I was doing some reference tracks for them. And that's kind of when I started. I ended up going home again after that because under religious programming, I was like, I need Jesus. I don't know what to do. I was like in condemnation. I didn't know what to do with my life. So, but then I was home for a few years and then I moved to New York at 25. And when I moved to New York, or 24, when I moved to New York is when I just went full force.
Was it something that you saw in LA, like some of the more bad things of the industry that made you feel like you had to go home and
Um,
kind of?
I didn't see anything at the time in LA. Like I wasn't really, I was, even though I was working with the Juggernauts, I wasn't in the party scene. You know what I mean? But the thing about it is I grew up watching documentaries of how rock music was satanic and like all, like my dad would travel the world and he preached a sermon called The Sound of Music and he would break down music and even like him and there was another guy named G. Craig Lewis. They were even talking about Christian artists. Like they were exposing even like Fred Hammond saying he was satanic. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like gospel music. Um, so I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
So why you returned to the Bay from LA?
Oh no, I went back to Arizona because we were in Arizona
Oh, right.
at the
Yeah.
time,
Mhm.
and then New York. Also, but then when I went to New York is when I experienced, you know, some things and detriment in my life.
Gotcha. And I know that you were in the 50 Cent music video, right? At that time, you were already pursuing music, or was it like modeling, or?
Yeah, no, I was in music and I didn't even want to be a video girl. My thing was like I had
Mhm.
done a couple videos and my friend was like, "Hey, they need someone last minute." And she was like, "They need a ballroom dancer." And I was like, "Okay, I can do it." I didn't even know who the video was for. I was thinking like a Michael Bublé joint or something. So I get to the venue and 50's like right there with a big ass smile just like looking at me. And I think they probably, you know, they I showed up and the girls were there and I think they were like they just needed a principal girl, you know. And so I showed up.
So for you, one of the first albums you listened to, right, was Get Rich or Die Trying. Now you're there, didn't even know, and you see him. What was like running through your head to be like, wow, like,
I was just like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Again, I was just taking it all in. And then I just remember like walking in. And then at first I was like, wait, you know, I was like, I didn't want to be in, you know, any kind of skimpy clothes or nothing. They handed me a nice dress and I was like, okay, I can do this, you know? Um, and then, you know, he did try kicking it to me. He whispered in my ear. He liked me. He wanted to take me out, but I had a boyfriend at the time. And I was like, you know, I just don't roll like that. I have someone at home that I love. So is it.
what?
Hmm.
50 tried to hit on you?
And
He
he tried
tried
to
to
get me, he tried to get me to come out to another shoot. And then I'll tell you this story. This is how I found out all this stuff. So after that shoot, I'm hanging out with the models and stuff, and I'm getting invited out to other places. So I'm hanging out, chilling, going to clubs and everything. Next thing you know, like I'm making friends with, you know, a basketball player from the Nets. I don't want to say his name. And we're all just, you know, just vibing out for a few weeks, right? Next thing you know, I get a call from Dre. And it was the same day that 50 was trying to get me to come to another shoot in Brooklyn. And I was
Wait, a
just
call
like,
from who?
oh, fuck. Okay. It's all good. Um, so, um, so I get it. And he's like, I need to talk. And I was like, are you okay? He's like, nah, I need to talk right now. And so 50 was trying to get me to go to another shoot. And I was like, nah, I'm not a video girl, bro. I was like, I'm an artist, you know? So I left him on red. And so Dre comes and picks me up. Ah, I said his name again. It's okay, whatever. Comes and picks me up with his assistant and takes me and we go and just sit down and have a conversation. And he basically let me know that through his one interaction with this one girl, let me know that I was like, oh, this is what's happening. I'm like, yo, all of these models double as prostitutes, as escorts.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm sitting here hanging out, being put on display. And the booking agent guys, they loved me around because everybody loved me. You know what I mean? But I'm like, no one ever asked me to, but he had an altercation with a model who was like, pay up. And he was like, what are you talking about? So
Who,
he was a guy,
50?
he didn't even know what was going on either. He was
50 or
in,
Dre?
huh?
50 or Dre had that altercation?
Dre. So
Oh, okay.
Dre didn't know what was going on either. So by him telling me what happened with that girl, it let me know there's a whole other operation going on here.
Wow. So your experience with 50, was he respectful after you told him, no, I have a boyfriend, I don't want to?
Very, actually.
Wow. So okay, so he doesn't live up to the public persona of being
Not
the
with
guy,
me. I
not with
heard
you.
from one
From
of the other models that he was like at another shoot, he was walking around saying I need to fuck something, but he never showed that to me.
hmm. Do you think that your life would have been different if you had went with him?
Absolutely.
But in the end, obviously, everything happens for a reason, and you're glad that you didn't, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would have come to a dead end at some point because I'm not cool with doing shit that they do.
Right. Got you. So at one point, you were a wedding singer, right? How
Yeah.
did that happen?
How do you know this? Oh my God. Um,
I do my research. I do my research real well.
wow, you do. Yeah, so I worked for a company in a live entertainment company in New York City. Um, and that was cool for a time. You would think that as a singer that like, oh my God, I like you just love it every time. When you're forced to sing at upscale, not forced, there was a choice. When you got to sing at really upscale weddings all the time and you're told what to sing and then you're put in a box and all kinds of stuff. And the funny thing about that company is, and I'm glad you're talking about, I need to talk about this. So the owner of that company, for whatever reason, when I came on the scene, I guess I threatened her. I remember her having really nervous energy around me. So it started making me nervous, because I'm an empath and I just absorb energy. And I'm just like, oh my God, now I'm nervous. Like, why am I nervous around her? And
Wait. But you're also an Aries, right?
yes.
So you got that fieriness that can be, a little scary to some people.
You're right. You're right. People do say I come off intimidating sometimes, and I'm like, okay, all right. I don't really see that because I feel like I'm me, but I can't see from the outside perspective. So, there was, we were shooting a promo video for the company. She like had me show up in this Latin ballroom dress that I had covered in Swarovski crystals, like a $7,000 dress. We had a whole studio, the whole band was there, the crane, the camera. And I performed, I did my thing. And we had a party a few weeks later, and everybody that had shot a promo video in the company, all their videos were shown at the party except mine. And I didn't know why. I didn't understand why they didn't show my video. And it made me think that I underperformed and that I didn't meet the standards. So in my mind, I started to mentally decline because I didn't have any answers. So my performance in the company also started to decline, coupled with her nervous energy. On top of it, she was just always, it was just weird, and in retrospect, a lot of wedding singers are frustrated people that didn't make it. And especially when you're older and you see someone that has that potential, she basically shit on me in a very backhanded way. I remember at one gig, she pulled me over to the side after and she was like, "You look amazing and you sing on key." And that crushed my soul for her to say that to me. So after that is when it really started to decline. And then a year later, after I was all messed up in the head, one of the other employees in the company told me that clients book off of my promo video.
Wow.
And that I'm still recovering from all that. You know what I mean? Because this has to do with my self-identity and who I am, not necessarily working a job or nothing, you know what I mean? But like who I am, who I know to be, it's hampered with that identity. So
why did that kill you to hear her say that? I mean, essentially she was complimenting you, right?
It was a backhanded compliment. I'm an empath. I know when someone's saying some sly shit.
Gotcha. Okay. I got you. Okay. And so did you ever have a conversation with her to be like, hey, like what's going on?
We did end up having a conversation at one point. It was a little bit before I left. And again, you cannot come to resolution with someone who has not resolved something in themselves.
Facts.
So at that point, I just had to leave the company.
And what year are we talking about for this?
2019. February 2019.
Oh, okay. So not too far away.
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy doing that though? I know that it kind of made you question like your self-worth to an extent because of the people were not right.
I enjoyed it for a while, but then after, I'm like, yo, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to be a fucking wedding singer, you know?
Right.
But I'll tell you, it gave me the opportunity to meet like a lot of dope musicians, like ones who are on tour with everybody, with all the top artists, work for that company when they're not on tour too. So, being able to play with them and all that, I had some really great gigs. You know what I mean? But then there was some times where she fucked with my head, and it's just what happened.
At this time, did you have any songs recorded?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I had been recording songs for years, but I'd never released anything. So my first release was in 2018. It was when I was working for that company.
Gotcha. And what made you even want to go into being a wedding singer at that time?
I didn't. I was getting called for 2 years from one of my mentors. And I was like, Willie, I'm not a wedding singer, bro. I'm an artist.
Mm-hmm.
2 years. Finally, I needed to pay some bills living in New York City.
Oh, it's expensive.
So, yes.
It's expensive. You being in the music industry and as a female especially, it's very tough, right? It's male dominated, and we live in a society to begin with where females are below men, as far as the perception, people get treated. Now, I'm assuming that at some point you were asked to exchange certain favors, right? Like, I'll do this for you in exchange for something sexual or something like that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, there was never any verbal communication like that. But when you show up to the studio and you're like, you didn't realize you were on a date, that's insinuating something. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And then at one point, the platinum selling producer who introduced me to Diddy raped me. I woke up and I went from being in a meeting with a bunch of music people at a restaurant to waking up in my apartment, choking on throw up, and it looking like a murder scene in my room.
That's crazy. So, and I'm assuming you don't want to say the name of the person.
Nah, because I'm not a rape victim. I'm not a victim.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that everybody needs healing, that men need healing, and certain things happen. So in my heart of hearts with that situation, even though of course I've truly healed from that. There are other things I haven't healed yet from, but from that, I have understanding for some weird reason. Because even when the Women's March happened, I was in New York. Friends were like, "Come out," and I was like, "I'm not going to no fucking Women's March. I'm not here to hang men." I'm like, the world needs healing. I
definitely respect that. What year did that happen?
That was 2015.
2015. And how long did it take for you to get over that?
Well, I would say I've really, really reconciled it probably within the past year.
Oh, okay. So good amount of time. And
yeah.
You don't remember anything about that night except for just waking up?
Waking up and just choking on vomit.
Did you ever test for, I don't know, any drugs or anything like that to see what you might have been slipped or what happened?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't think about that.
Wow. And
I didn't think about that.
Did you have any conversations with him after the fact?
I did.
What was that like?
I told him that's not cool. You know what I mean? Whatever happened is not cool. And I think he did tell Diddy too. So Diddy knew.
That's crazy. So did he show any remorse or anything like that?
There was a point where I saw him at a party and he walked up to me sweating. And he said, "Are we good, Tina? We good?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, we good."
Would you say, or can you say that this is one of the producers that Diddy keeps around him for years?
No, not one of those. No.
Okay. So we're not talking one of the hitmen or anything like that.
No.
Gotcha. Okay. And what was your experiences like with Diddy?
Well, I only had phone conversation and text with him. So he was texting me every day for about 2 weeks when that thing happened. And the funny thing is, too, if we want to get into the spiritual side of it, I did have a dream, right after talking to him on the phone, that he came to me in the dream and he had sex with me. And that's a way, keep in mind, there's a lot more that happens in the spiritual than there is in the physical. And that's how they tap in and connect.
So what was he saying to you during those 2 weeks? Was he talking about the actual incident, or was it more just like, hey, like I want to work with you?
Well, after that happened, we discussed it a little bit, and then we just kind of parted ways, you know. But prior to that, it was about meeting me. It was about getting music done, because at the time, I was being taken all over the city, meeting all kinds of producers and people, and trying to tell them what my sound was too. Like, they gave me some records with like some major features on it. I'm like, yo, this is whack, you know. I'm like, I had they gave me a track with a Wale feature, and I'm like, this is the worst Wale verse ever. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, they didn't understand what I wanted to do. But eventually my sound ended up coming out.
At what point in your career did you realize, okay, there's something wrong here within this industry, really? Like, and I'm starting to see all of the bullshit, basically.
The thing is, I always knew there was something wrong with it, because I grew up being taught this stuff. And at one point, my family, I almost married a man who was part of the Bourbon family. He gave me a book this thick, breaking down all the symbols and secrets of what they do. So in my mind, it was weird, because I've always felt like, because even when I was a kid in church, I was prophesied that I would conquer the mountain of entertainment, and that I would be singing and dancing, and exactly what I'm doing now, I would be doing. So my whole thing was always being an infiltrator to a degree, and revolutionizing and changing the industry from the inside out, but I just kind of like blindly went forward and not realizing that, those things would happen.
Damn, Tina, you almost married someone too? Like I feel like you've lived like a real like interesting life, you know what I mean?
Yes. I was forced. Okay, so this was right before I moved to LA. My dad forced me into a marriage at 19.
Why was that?
So why?
Yeah.
Because he thought I was having sex with this boy that I had been dating. We were dating for a little while, but then I just kind of wasn't liking him anymore. But when I had like left home one day because my dad and I got into it. And he's like, well, if you're going to listen to music, you can't live in this house. So I left, went to stay at my friend's apartment, and he wasn't there. So this guy we had been dating, he came to stay with me because I just needed company. I'd been through a lot with my father, and he was just, being a friend. My dad finds out where I'm staying. 2 days later, he comes in, he's bringing him breakfast, right? My dad follows him into the apartment, and my dad is like, you guys got to be at the courthouse in an hour. And I was like, no. My dad picks up a mug. He throws it in my direction. I duck. It shatters the sliding glass door behind me. He flips over a coffee table. Suffice to say, we were at the courthouse an hour later. So we're at the courthouse, right? And he was still very much in love with me. He wanted to be married to me. But I'm sitting there crying. I'm sitting there signing the marriage license, and the clerk is looking at me like, what is going on? And just tears streaming down onto the paper.
Wow.
And my dad, he was a minister, could officiate it. We didn't have to have an actual ceremony. It's just, bam, it's done.
I know that, you've made peace with your dad and the things that you've been through in life, over the years. But up until that point, did you feel like, you had a lot of trauma caused by kind of the things that he pushed with the religion and the dictating?
I'm actually still working through that. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you how, because whatever, the whole daddy issues thing is very real. And it's because of a vibration. So I was accustomed to being in a certain vibration and being under his thumb and having a certain mindset mentality about myself. And what that did is it allowed me to attract someone in my life who was going to treat me in a similar fashion.
Right. That's why they say that everybody grows up to marry their own father or mother, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you can break that curse. But I've realized right now, because I even just found out through a spiritual source, where I found out that my an ex, I don't want to say an ex, who is married right now with a second kid on the way, after I left him, because he locked me in a tower. At one point, like, he was trying to control what I wore. He didn't want me to go anywhere. He ostracized me from my friends. And then he ended up getting jealous of me because he was a musician, and he was, he sings, but he's not a singer. So he was the front leader of the band, and I would come and I'd sing a couple songs, and I played like the synth keys. And there were people that were saying, you need to be the lead singer of the band. So he got really jealous and insecure, and he started sabotaging me on stage.
Wow.
And would just in life, and then would say things when I would like try to uplift myself. He would say something to squash it, and he'd be like, I'm just bringing you down to reality. So I ended up having friends help me leave him because it was that kind of fear. The same thing like my father, you know what I mean? When after I left him, I found out later, and I didn't even believe this, that he ended up on crack. And I'm just finding out now, and it must have been when he was on crack, because I don't know if he would have done this in his own, maybe in his own right mind, because he's got a lot of issues, but that he went to some spiritual someone who practices certain things and had some kind of curse. He tried to put some curse on me. So I'm just finding this out.
And how long ago were you with him?
This was 2011.
Wow. So he is still hung up for many years.
He hasn't let go. And I can energetically still feel him. And he watches me from a private account. And I know, because I'm intuitive. I know, and I've learned my gifts. So I've learned not to question them anymore. And other things that have happened that confirm that he stays watching me. He's got his second kid on the way. And I want him to just be released. Like, be released of me. He's got a wife that sings now. He's trying to recreate what we had. And I get it. You want that again. You know what I mean? But now he's not acting in his own happiness. He has cultivated his life, and he uses his wife to try to be a competition tool. And jab at me energetically.
That's terrible.
Isn't that, people do that? That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
I don't physically see him, but I can feel his energy after me. I'm writing a song about it right now too. We'll see if I put it out.
That's insane. So you're saying that obviously, like, your relationship with your father had you attract certain men that, mistreated you. And at what time did you start to break that curse? Like, I mean, that cycle.
I'm in the middle of breaking it.
You're still.
Mm-hmm.
And what made you realize that this is what I've done, like, because of my relationship with my dad?
What do you mean? Like, what caused me to realize the correlation between the two?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, just after so many years of why does this keep happening? Why, and then I got to take responsibility for my vibration and what I'm attracting and what I'm outputting because of what has happened to me. So it's like, at the same token, it wasn't my fault. But at this point in my life, I now have to take responsibility for what I'm emitting.
Yeah, I think that, we all have things that happen to us, right? And, you can only use that for so long. But it's up to you to do the healing yourself, to do the work, the hard work,
mm-hmm.
because that's what's going to change your life, instead of you falling into the same behavioral patterns.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So was it difficult for you to come to the conclusion that you were going to use your platform to expose the practices in the industry? Like, how do you know about all these practices to begin with? Because you go into detail. You go into detail. It's pretty crazy.
When I was 22, I was given a book this thick.
Mm-hmm.
Also being raised and learning about all these symbols and backmasking and all that stuff from when I was a child. So it's embedded in me, like I can see it. And I have a critical thinking mind, which tampers with my ability to be positive sometimes. So right now I'm balancing that, because a lot of what I see is so negative, because it is, but I have to, sometimes I just have to turn that off and just look at the beauty of what's around us.
So for somebody that is basically trained to see the BS in the industry, right? The terrible, terrible things. Why would you want to go into an industry like that? That's the question.
Because it's what I was sent to Earth for.
Okay. So you feel like a higher calling, like it's your purpose to bring light to it.
Absolutely.
And what kind of like challenges have you faced with coming out and saying all these things?
Just, regular people that could have possibly, but at the same time, I think I'm like, nah, anyone who's going to talk like that to me was never going to be a supporter. Um, but just kind of where people don't understand how the industry is run. They don't know the inner workings. They don't know what's going on. All they see is the smoke and mirrors on the outside. Um, it can be a little frustrating dealing with people who don't know what's going on.
So for you're talking about,
Especially when I'm trying to put out music now and they're like, oh, well, you're just jealous because you didn't make it. And you're just saying this because you can't, like, no, I did make it. I said no.
right? So you're talking about like the fans are doing this. This is from that perspective
Yeah.
of like the
Yeah.
regular
TikTok.
consumer.
Ooh, I get a lot of heat on TikTok. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm doing what I'm doing. I never really, it was just like a friend of mine who's also an independent artist was like, hey, I think you should start spitting truth on social media. Put out a video and it just went. But prior to that, I was like in my Instagram stories and things like that, or even in person, like I would put out snippets of things and talk about it. People knew what I was onto. And when I was in New York, this is why I believe one of the twins was sent to me, because I was all over New York City in rooms and all kinds of places talking about the frequency of music. And then after that is when I was, and I talked about it too when Ralph McDaniels interviewed me. So I was on TV talking about this stuff. And then an anonymous person from an anonymous account that claimed to be an executive from Rock Nation came in my DM and started threatening me.
Okay, so yeah, that was going to be one of my questions too. But I do notice that, I don't know if you've seen it, but like on YouTube, there's this like 25-minute video of someone calling you a hater and saying, oh, you said this about so-and-so, you said this and whatnot, and so like that. Yeah. Because, I was doing my research on you and I was like, man, you don't really do that many interviews, So like I'm looking up, going through all your videos and stuff. And I saw that one and I was like, I wonder what this person is saying. And it was really interesting. So obviously you've received backlash for coming out and making comments about some of the people's favorite artists and kind of the inner circles that they're in, right?
Yes.
How has your controversial views affected you in the industry itself, like the relationships with other artists or execs, people in those positions of power?
It definitely affects those relationships, because I know a lot of people, and some people don't talk to me anymore. But it's okay. I have to do what I have to do, and I'm not here to coddle one's emotions, but I'm just here to do what I got to do. And if you don't like what I'm doing, then we can part ways, but the shift has already been happening and what's being done is done. And I believe at some point soon enough, those people are going to come back full circle.
And I'm sure that, people have called you crazy and whatnot because of what you're saying is like the less favorable opinion, right? The one that people don't really talk about as well. When I see you discuss these topics, you come across as very passionate and somewhat angry at times. Like, what is it in your core that makes you feel the way that you do?
One, because of what has happened to me. And seeing the inner workings and other people's stories, other people that I know, what has happened to them, seeing the effects that entertainment and the music industry, that what it's doing to our youth, seeing how a lot of these artists, it's clear to see how they are government tools and they're not real artists. So that's where that's where that anger kind of arises from.
And then you were talking about the threats that you were receiving. Is this like a daily occurrence that you receive from like a lot of different instances or just like specific situations?
Well, no, that one DM, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of other DMs that I never found, but that one DM happened that one time. And then, in other roundabout ways, like, you've heard about Beyonce casting spells on Kim Thompson came out. And by the way, Kim Thompson also was working for the company that I used to work for, and another friend who I don't talk to anymore called her crazy. He said she showed up to rehearsal 2 hours late and he called her crazy. And I said, bro, you don't know what's going on. I said, that's what happens when someone casts a spell on you. It tampers with your energy to where you can't even, your judgment is clouded, everything, your energy, you can't even get up. I'm like, there's a reason she showed up to a professional, one of the baddest drummers on the planet. How she can't even get herself to rehearsal for a wedding company. You know what I mean?
So
So
how did you know that it was a person from Rock Nation that sent the
because
message?
they said it. They said they were.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that not smart to identify yourself?
That's really dumb. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of dumb people at Rock Nation. A lot.
Okay, so one of the biggest videos that I've seen from you, right, is you talking about celebrities at the BET Awards and how as kids, you know, we were watching these shows like, oh my God, this is so cool. But then, you know, you said these people are so scared. They're owned by large corporations and they can't really even do what they want or say what they want. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, pretty much. They're given scripts. They're given things to talk about. You know, and they're given a persona and they have to stick to that script. If, say, another pandemic happens, if they want to go against the grain, they're not allowed to.
So are these things that, you know, are put into the record contracts that they sign and they agree to, or what exactly?
Well, I mean, I don't know the details of that, you know what I mean? But I do know of another artist that was starting to put out information, and he got calls from people saying, nope, 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 bad boy.
Yeah.
So they get warnings.
Gotcha. And for this specific clip, it got sent to me because I do a lot of content that's related to Terror Squad and Fat Joe. And one of the things you said was that Joe is one of the biggest cucumber suckers. How he comes across as someone that is afraid to say the wrong thing. Did you grow up as a Terror Squad fan?
Nope.
No? Okay. Well, what made you want to say that about Joe specifically?
Because I can read his energy. And I have a feeling he may have sacrificed Big Pun. So, you know, people say obviously health issues, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But again, you do that through the spirit realm. And then someone's physical sickness can come upon them through the spirit realm. So you just look at him. He's a cornball, you know? He doesn't there's nothing of substance that is helping humanity, that is uplifting hip hop even, that is coming from his mouth. He just introduced, what's that girl, Sexy Red?
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, Joe, what the fuck are we doing out here, bro? This ain't hip hop.
Yeah, it's real interesting, especially ever since he joined Rock Nation. It's like the fame shot through the roof even more. Like there's no album, there's nothing but like literally on every show. And I'm sorry to say, but you know, when you start showing up on like The View and stuff like that, like when like, you know, old women like you, then that says something else. Like it's a different level of fame, you know, it's like a different level of fame.
Mm-hmm. Next level shit.
Right, exactly. So, you think that him joining Rock Nation obviously took him to be a part of the elite?
Oh, probably, definitely, yeah. Because I mean, yeah, you can see clear to see now. You know what I mean? He's all in it.
Right, like he has like the books and you know, and the shows being developed and everything on his life.
One other thing too, in hip hop, I mean, we all know if you're gonna rap, you got a pen, you have to write. So none of these hip hop people are saying anything about the Cardi B's and all these frauds coming in who don't have the pen and who actually sound terrible on records.
Yeah.
They're endorsing this shit. And every one of Cardi's records, she's talking about prostitution.
Yeah, and we're going to get into Cardi in a little bit too, because I know that you've had some harsh criticism about her as well. So Joe had this one artist that was with him for so many years that was penning a lot of like his records and everything. And he came out to do exposing. His name is TA. And
oh, really?
Yeah. And he did a lot of exposing, like it's ridiculous, a crazy amount. But I don't know if you know who Choke No Joke is. He was with Rockefeller back in the days and everything, and he did a lot of documenting for video and everything. But he came out and he said Joe couldn't take TA because he knew that TA was not going to be okay with some of the practices they do behind those doors when you pass through the door, right? Whether if that's the worshipping or getting the Hershey hole, taking those type of things. So I say all of that to say that, I'm sure that these are things that you've heard of, right? Like that happen when you take it to that next level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What is it like from what you've heard or experienced, like when you get approached to go to that next level?
Well, I mean, the situation with Diddy was that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I said no to certain things, I feel like it may have been a test or whatever, but Diddy was like, "Oh, she's definitely not going to be down for anything else," you know?
Yeah, and we've
Is that what you're asking?
yeah, and we've definitely heard about those Diddy parties. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take a look at female artists in the industry today, right, and the drastic measures that they take in order to sell records, what are your feelings about that? I know you mentioned Cardi B.
What? Oh, sorry. Ask that again one more time. Sorry.
Yeah, so like, what are your feelings about the drastic measures that the female artists take these days in order to sell records? Like, you have people become more of like popular figures that people just like to follow on Instagram and stuff, but they don't buy their records, right? You see like Sweetie, she only sold like 9,000 copies of her first week, but yet she's got millions of followers on IG. It doesn't correlate, like the numbers. That's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, because even though the IG numbers aren't real either, you
Right.
know.
Those are bought a lot of times.
Yeah. So they're just planted people that are put in position, and they just got to keep pumping shit out. You know what I mean? So they're not real artists. They're like actors cast in a role.
And do you think that this is more of like a distraction, like for people, like just to be like obsessed with the particular person while, the elites are doing more things behind the scenes? Or
That certain ideologies, certain vibrations that are passed on, the influence, all of that.
right, especially
Because you see how a music artist, how they can influence a bunch of girls. Like one music artist is twerking and doing, and you see 100 other teens trying to do the same thing.
definitely, yeah, I can definitely see the power of music. Obviously, like when we were growing up and everything, and I seen 50 with his bulletproof vest on, I'm like, I gotta get me one of them bulletproof vests. You know what I mean? Like,
See? Yeah.
like or those type of things. I understand. Like, so when you look at an artist like Doja Cat, right? And I felt that she had great promise in the beginning and looked normal, but over time, it's like the acting was more erratic and the exchanges with the fans, and then like just even the way that she looks is just.
This is what I speculate. Now, I don't know. This is just my speculation, but obviously she's really talented. You know what I mean? She's the real deal. Now, something happened. Was she went out to do a show in Paraguay, and I guess she's under the umbrella of Miley Cyrus, because I don't know why Miley Cyrus was going to be out there, right? MGK too. MGK was out there, and Miley's jet, lightning hit Miley's jet, so she couldn't make it to Paraguay. All of a sudden, this disaster happened in Paraguay. Doja couldn't do the show. Now all the fans are mad. They in the media said MGK came out and did like a show outside of the hotel, but then they said Doja Cat was like treating fans like shit and all that. But she tweeted something and was like, "This is not what I signed up for. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore." And my guess is, because you don't know, they're not going to tell you got to do these rituals leading up for the rest of your life. They're not going to tell you that. You know what I mean? But my guess is that she had to face one ritual that she was not cool with.
Yeah, like she did say she was going to quit music and like for a while it seemed like she's almost been on a decline, right? Like one time she was like headed up, like, and like great promise.
And the thing is, she is that influential. You know what I mean? She is very talented. So, they can't, if you want to get out, you're either going to get killed, or they're going to mess with your mind. They're going to MK Ultra you up and tamper with your entire life like that. So I don't know exactly what's going on with her, but I don't think that all of this that she's doing. I don't think she's doing it to sell records. She doesn't have to. She sells,
Mm.
you know?
Because I know that
I just think
I know there's been like some talks about how like when you act out, you know, there's like the punishment and like shaving your head and
that the shaving of the head, all
right.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you notice, like she has been bald, right? And so
was Saweetie. Saweetie was bald for a second too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy and really makes you wonder. So with you being the one to come out and expose things like that, don't you think that you would be an easy target, like for somebody to come and try to take you out? Like,
I absolutely. I mean, they already tried. You know what I mean? They sent Le Twins, Laurent Bourgeois of Le Twins. I dated him for 3 months. He completely tampered with my energy. He cast a spell on me to even cause me to be attracted to him. And in retrospect, I was like, oh, that's when he did it. I know he spoke an incantation over me. So they've already tried it. Killing me. I probably am that protected, you know, because I have a purpose. And some people are meant to go when they go, you know, people that have done things like I've done before. But then, you know, and whenever my time is, whenever I'm supposed to go, that's when I'm supposed to go. No man can choose that.
who would you say that you're protected by?
Source energy, where we all come from, really.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate protection right now is coming from starting to understand and view them as one. So to dispel the darkness, understanding we're all one, you know what I mean? So there's nothing to be afraid of. And I think the people that have been taken out in the past, they allowed the energy to overtake them, and they were enveloped in so much fear that they ended up manifesting, you know, or they just got taken out.
I'm not sure if this is true, but I think I saw somewhere that you were close with Prodigy. Is that right? Of Mobb Deep, or you knew him?
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't close with him. I met him a couple times, like, because when I was in that crew with, you know, hanging out with the models with 50 and everything, he was in those circles. So he actually tried to kick it to, I don't know what they ended up doing, but the same girl that my basketball player friend came and complained to me about, he was kicking it too.
Mm. Because, you know, there's always the talk about how he got taken out because he was trying to expose some of the practices in the industry as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing about them, see, I never signed on the dotted line either.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they don't control any aspect of my life, unlike Prodigy and people like that.
So you think that, like, with these artists, they like agree to certain conditions in exchange for fame, and then like at some point they get tired of putting up with it?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of crazy because I know, like, you know, a lot of fans, obviously, and you're used to it, they're going to watch this and they're going to be like, oh, she's nuts or whatever, or like she doesn't know what she's talking about. What do you have to say to those type of people?
I say to quiet your mind, quiet the noise around you, and start to listen with your heart and tap into your intuition.
And you think that will make a difference in helping them understand that there's a bigger plan here? There's an agenda, or?
That's not necessarily my concern. My people will awaken, and people will see when and if they are chosen to see. My job is to just put out the information.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you think about an artist like Lil Nas X, or like Lil Nas X? Like, is he an industry plant?
Oh, for sure. You could definitely. I mean, he's got no real talent. You know what I mean?
And the visuals, right, with like the devil and everything. Because, you know, it's interesting because these platforms now, obviously, they are controlling what we can and what we can't say, you know, and if you say the wrong thing, you get demonetized or you get shadow banned and whatnot, you know, like even Doggy Diamonds, he has a big audience, been doing it for years, like 300,000 subscribers, right? They demonetized him for talking about rituals.
Really?
Yeah. And they said that it's because he used content that doesn't belong to him, but it's really not true though. Like, and you see like all these people getting demonetized or shadow banned and everything. And it's crazy. You know, this is where people make their money and provide for their families, and especially with having good years of standing. And it's sad. But like, I say that to say that, oh, you mentioned, I don't know, pandemic, you mentioned COVID, you mentioned like certain key words or something like that, right? You get in trouble with these platforms. But yet you can have Lil Nas X dancing naked on there, you know, on YouTube, or you know, giving a lap dance to the devil and everything, right? Because there's money being put behind him. And it's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it.
It is. And really we're seeing that we as regular civilians, we don't even get the same benefits that they do, because while we were being forced to mask up and all that, they were just conducting their lives as normal, like behind closed doors and all that. Like they were not meeting the standards, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously then you see like there's a control thing that is happening, right? The more that you make somebody scared, the easier it is to control them.
And then you can clearly see when they're trying to sway you and tell you who to vote for and all that. Like, I mean, I don't believe in American politics at all. I think it's all bullshit. But I'm like,
I do too.
Like, come on, like stick to entertaining and being a clown. You know what I mean?
So like for you, like when you see somebody like Ice Spice, right? Like obviously industry plant, right? It's like for you, like now that the veil has been lifted, like do you ever sit back and you're just like laughing at how like ridiculous it is?
Yeah, it's so bad. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes it makes me not even want to be an artist, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to be grouped into that. Like, I don't want people thinking that that's what I am trying to attain and achieve, because that ain't it. You know?
Does it ever make you feel frustrated that the more you try to explain, that the more people call you crazy, or like, you know, like?
I think it did at some point, but I've gotten over that. Like I've got like, I don't really look at my comments on TikTok anymore. I just kind of, I'm tunnel vision now. So before I was engaging with people and responding, and I'm like, sometimes I'll do that. Like I'll take a comment and make a video response to it. But I don't really, I'm like, I'm kind of more in the space. I just got to put out the message, the information. Those that have ears to hear, let them hear.
Right. Yeah. Like whoever is going meant to receive it is going to receive it. And it may not be at this time. You may return to this, and then you may be ready then to receive it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm understanding too, I could be planting seeds. So.
Exactly. Right. For it to grow eventually. Yeah. And I definitely think that, you know, when you're making content online, it's like there's always going to be somebody that says the craziest shit online, right? That they would not say in person. Like you could be making even just content about your kids and be like real nice, and then just gonna be somebody, fuck your kids, like, you know, like that down in the comments. It's crazy.
It is.
For you, I'm sure that you see this blueprint that for the female artists that is being followed, you know, the over sexualization and all that. How do you stray away from that? Like when you're making your own, like, are you're looking at that? And because I've the stuff that I've seen from you, you look beautiful, obviously, and everything, you know, but you're not like over the top, like twerking or doing anything crazy.
Yeah. I mean, growing up in a Christian home, that, you know, obviously I'm going to be more conservative. There was a time where I was putting out more provocative photos on Instagram because I thought that that's what I needed to do. It was a while ago. And then the energy that I was receiving back, I was like, oh, this is gross. I'm like, cut that shit off. I'm like, this ain't even me. Nope. And I'm really against twerking. I think it looks stupid. And secondly, it's solely meant to provoke and incite sexual arousal from men. And I have enough men trying to kick it to me anyway. I don't need to twerk, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, is that like disappointing for you to see that like women feel the need to have to do that in order to succeed in this industry? Because I feel like a lot of times there's like no more MC Lights. There's no like Lauryn Hills anymore. It's like the route is just, let me talk about WAP, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's the easiest route to gain attention too, because something happens chemically in the brain of a man when they see the flesh and the certain movements. You know what I mean? So it's like, and it's gonna get an automatic. It's like an automatic attention grab. So it works. It produces results. That's why they do it.
Yeah, I think that is it's really sad because all the songs almost sound like the same. It's about the same thing, right? It's like, oh, my wet pussy and blah blah blah, but it's not like about anything of substance. Like I think the problem is maybe there's just too much access to artists these days, like as opposed to before, like when we're growing up and we want to know what the artist is really like, and like there's a mystique around it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's like they're like real people. I don't know. It's just
Mhm.
it's a strange thing these days.
It is. It is. But I'm actually here for that part because I like to be human and I like to interact with people and engage and I like to connect with people. So I never really wanted to be this mysterious mystique artist. Like I'll look at you in your eyes, I'll give you a hug, like, yo, you know what I mean? Like I want to connect with people and humanity.
Yeah, and you have a big following, right? Like, I mean, what do you have, like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, right? Like on
Right
IG.
now,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that audience was
Followers.
built um mainly, do you think, from the music, or you think more of the exposing of the industry?
What my TikTok definitely started shooting up when I started exposing the industry.
Mhm. And do you have full-length projects out at the time?
You like full albums, you're
Yeah,
saying?
uh-huh.
No, no album yet. I'm waiting on that because I think like I see these all these artists prematurely putting out an album. And right now it is a singles market, and what putting out singles because I'm also the type like I want to keep putting out singles and different sounds, show people my versatility, and then soon enough when I have the right production team that's coming very soon to really sit sit with the art and create it. You know what I mean? Like no fast food album. I'm not just trying to put out an album.
Right.
Like I'm here for a long time, you know? So I want to make sure that I take my time in cooking that up.
Yeah, because you come from the mindset of, it's about the substance and the value to it, right? Like these days, for everyone, it's so much about the bag, and it's like, oh, let's hurry up and get this out so we can get the bag. But like I saw an interview where you were talking about the first time that you listened to Lauryn Hill, right? The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill,
Hmm.
and how you stayed with that for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And these days, the way that music is consumed is just, what have you done for me lately? Oh yeah, we listened to it for a week, we done. Let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
And it's just like
Yeah.
the replay value is so little that it's very disappointing. I mean,
Because it's fast food music.
yeah,
I was listening to the Miseducation yesterday,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I miss the times where it's like you focus on no skips. Like I'm trying to find that album that has no skips, right? So like you
Hmm.
listen and understand the project at a full length versus like, oh, I like this song and this song, but the rest of the project is trash.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I don't want no filler joints either.
Yeah.
I want it to be a true full body of work where like you're saying it's you have to listen from beginning to end without pause.
I noticed that you haven't really done many interviews. Why is that?
Well, I'm just very careful, you know. I did do another interview recently that just kind of unnerved me a little bit because they started talking, I talked about they want to talk about the rape and they harped on it a little bit too much and I'm like, nah, I'm not here for that. You know what I mean? This is just a small component of what's happened. Like, let's move on.
Was it because the Diddy factor, they were trying to attach that to the thing, or
I think so, yeah.
okay. So because of like situations like that, or like do you think that you see like they don't have a genuine interest in you, or what is it?
Well, yeah, and I'm just very picky and choosy with who I exchange my energy with.
Right, that's really important, definitely.
Hmm.
How have your parents reacted to your career in music and the controversial things that you discussed?
Uh, my dad is here for it. My mom helps to balance me a little bit,
Hmm.
helps to balance my aggression. But she is fully like she is like we're on the same page. She understands fully.
What can I'm sorry, go ahead.
She just wants me to change my methods a little bit sometimes.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. What can fans expect from a project from you? Like, are you going to be mainly singing? Is it a mixture of with rap, and is it aggressive or?
It just depends how I feel because I'm a real artist. So I'm not going to put myself in a marketing box. I'm not going to put out something, oh, well, you guys want to hear this. Like I'm going to go and make whatever I'm feeling.
And then what comes
So I
out
don't
comes
know.
out.
Mhm.
How do you feel about the narrative that hip hop is the worst thing to happen to people of color?
Who says that?
I forgot his name. He was on ESPN before. Jason Whitlock.
Well,
There you go.
it was the commandeering of hip hop, not the true vibration of hip hop. Because hip hop originally was meant for peace, love, unity, and safely having fun. That is the original vibration of hip hop. It was in the early 90s. We all know the story. It was commandeered. Didn't Crazy Bone die recently too?
No, he didn't die, but he was in the hospital having
Okay.
extreme
Sorry.
issues. Yeah.
Well, he came out talking about that meeting that happened in the Hollywood Hills in 1991.
Wow.
And so the whole genre of music was commandeered. So the people at the labels, they took it and they started changing it and changing the content and signing their people and pushing that. Even Tupac, they gave him a persona. That's why he started fighting it, you know?
Yeah, because I believe Whitlock was saying that like it is the devil's music, and the impact that it's had on people has been more of like very detrimental to the youth.
Well, rock music was originally called the devil's music.
Right.
But right now, I would say it's mostly because of the infiltration of the vibration and the changing of the content, which influences the minds of the youth and influences behavior. And now society has completely changed. So it's not hip hop; it's the commandeering of hip hop, and it's pop too.
Right.
It's
It
the
is.
whole entertainment. It's Hollywood, all of it.
What do you think about drill music and the impact that it's had?
I think the frequency of that music definitely incites a lot of violence.
And the culture itself of including like some of the laws that you break, like you've actually done like real situations that you can reference, and how people have been tied into court cases and everything now because of admitting those things. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or wait, I'm sorry. You asked what?
No. I'm just saying that like it's
Oh,
crazy
okay.
how it's been like like how they
Yeah.
tie in like things that they can be brought up on in court cases like the YSL. I think I saw you speak on the whole Young Thug situation not too long ago.
Yeah. And what people don't realize is Young Thug is controlled by Lear Cohen. So people think that this whole vibration is coming from like, no. And it is. It's a partnership. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they specifically want to pick and choose people like Young Thug
Why is that? Why people like Young Thug?
because of the content, what they're going to be putting out, the vibration.
Have you had like family members or friends that have like tried to sway you away from talking about these specific things?
No family members. Some friends, people. I use the word friends loosely. My family is in full support of what I do, but friends can be fickle, and I get people that try and come and tell me some things.
Right. What about boyfriends? Have they like found it difficult to have you exposing things like that?
Yes.
What can you give us like some examples or like situations like that?
Well, being that I have dated people in the industry, that work, do other things, important things. Um, their association with me could look bad for them.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. So is there anything else you want to say to the fans before we wrap it up? Like any special projects that you got going on?
I think I'm going to take, after this, I'm going to take a little bit of time to work on my makeup line and build that a little bit more while still making music, but I'm going to, for the next 6 months after the show, I think that's going to be my focal point. And then probably by next fall, I'll, maybe shoot for an EP.
Wow, that's amazing. Definitely. And I know you've done acting as well. Any projects like that in the works?
You know what? Not yet, but I'll probably manifest one because I do want to do another. I did an indie film back in 2018, and I really enjoyed that. It changed my life. So I want.
Which one is that one called?
It's called Cheo. It's like a Christian independent film on Amazon Prime. So, and my song "The Devil" is actually in it too, and it won some awards at indie festivals. So that was cool. But it gave me a lot of great experience. So I'd like to do that again.
And you're one of the leads in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't you win an award for ballroom dancing?
I did. Yes, I got it right here. Yeah, I started ballroom dancing with my mom in 2008, and then I went on to compete in salsa or whatever, but, did back into the ballroom scene and won some awards.
So is there any plans to go back into that as well?
No, but what I will be using dance for is when I have a big ass tour, I want dancers, partner dance, all that kind of stuff going on.
What would you say out of all the things that you do, right, is your favorite? Singing, rapping, acting, dancing, ice skating,
Ooh.
Right? Because I saw you doing them spins, girl. That was crazy.
Well, figure skating was actually my first love. That was what I really, really wanted to do and wanted to be. But when I was 12, my dad, he saw how much I loved it. And he was like, you love the things of the world more than the things of God. And he removed me from figure skating. So, yeah, I was about to go train at the World Arena for 3 months with my coach and her 3 daughters. And they were dope figure skaters. So I was already in that whole vibe of being around high competitive figure skaters, and I could have made it really far, but, that was stunted.
So last question, okay, because this just popped up. Do you like living in New York better than living in California?
Now, yes, because California is crazy, and it is. And New York City is my vibe.
You like the fast pace?
I love it.
Yeah. All right, Tina, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the interview. I felt like we really got to cover so much and got to let the people know more about you and what you're really about.
Absolutely. You're really great, by the way. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I try. I know I surprised you a little bit with how much I knew.
You did. I'm like, wow, you're great. So.